He is an up-and-coming coaching star. Stan Johnson is with us, LMU's new head basketball coach, coming over from Marquette, where he was an associate head coach, also has stops at Utah and Drake and Arizona State, Cal State Northridge, Southwest Baptist, Bemidji State, and as a player, got Southern Utah into the NCAA tournament for the first and only time. You can follow him on Twitter at LMU Coach Johnson. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. Stan, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on here. And for anybody that gets the opportunity to meet you, their first impression of you is someone who always gives off this upbeat persona, even amidst the chaos that you have experienced in your life, from childhood to what we're dealing with right now with the pandemic. You always seem to stay positive, have that uplifting presence. How have you gotten to that frame of mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I've said this, a lot. For me, I have every excuse right now in my corner, in terms of taking over a job and what the cards I've been dealt to sit around and mope and, woe is me. I mean, I've met half my team in person. I don't know when we'll get on the court. The gyms are closed in LA and we're going to have a late start. There's so many things. I haven't been able to meet, donors in person. I mean, every excuse in the book. And,
yeah.
And I think I would probably get a pass for that. But those are things that I can't control. And, the one thing I know that I have total control of is my attitude. And usually, even that doesn't mean inwardly I don't have some of those feelings. But if you wake up and you have a pep to your step and you have a plan and you are upbeat and you're positive and you're trying to project that, it's amazing how your mind follows that. And in these moments, having that has really helped me. And more importantly, sometimes, right now more than ever, people are looking for leadership.
Yeah.
My team is looking for leadership. Our university is looking for leadership. The world's looking for leadership. There's somebody somewhere looking for a good message. And if I can help in any way be that for someone, that's a great thing. But that's my theory. That's how I think. And I'm glad you said that. But by no means does that mean that, man, everything's jolly. But
yeah,
I've said this a couple of times. In adversity can cause you to break, and it can cause others to break records. And I hope all of us will have a chance to break records in everything we're doing once we get through this.
Gosh, if I had eligibility, I want to play for Coach Stan. I love that mindset.
Oh, well, thank you right now.
So people who are just learning about your backstory and your bio, you've been open about what you experienced as a child and coming over from Liberia and the tough times that you had to endure over there. Give us a sense of the timeline when you were there growing up, because there were a major conflict of situations taking place, from you sensing the doom of that coming about to it actually happening, to then you coming to the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I was, my mom is Cuban. She was born in the States, but her parents are from Cuba. She was an American. She is an American. Met my dad at Montana Tech, where my dad went to school. They met in Montana. My dad is from Liberia, West Africa. He went to college there. He's a mining engineer. Moved back there. I was born there in Bung Mines, which is a small, actually German community that really housed a mining company there. And so I was in Africa till I was 10. And then you're right, in 1990, a civil war did break out where, so many hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives. And we were very fortunate to escape and leave there with pretty much nothing, and had to come to America and start life all over again. But in 1990 that took place, and we were put on a war plane and flew over to another African country. And then from there we we came to America.
What's it like seeing a 10-year-old Stan Johnson watching a place where you grew up, your home, and witnessing what was taking place?
Yeah, you see all these war movies and and how they're portrayed. And I tell people all the time, man, there's nothing like war. And I'll never forget the day that the rebels came into our community, into our town, and they really started to invade the country. And you're sitting there staring at some dude with a AK-47 who doesn't look that much older than you, maybe 16, 17, 14. And you think, well, this is probably going to be it, right? And then you're leaving there, and we actually left my dad behind because he wasn't going to leave until he found his mom and dad, because they lived in a different part of the country. So you're getting on a plane with 2-3 bags, not knowing if you ever see your father again, with a war, at 10, that's confusing. But then coming over here and not having much in common with some kid from Salt Lake City, Utah, talk about two completely different environments. But when you're in that moment, especially at 10, you can't see down the line. You just see the next day. And I wouldn't say I'm grateful for the war because, so many people died, but the experience, though, has truly shaped me and how I see people and how I see life.
You couldn't look down the line when you were 10, but now that you're 40, you can go back and look down the line of what you've done since. Without that civil war in Liberia, Stan, where do you think 40-year-old Stan Johnson would be, and what would he be doing?
That's a good question. I certainly wouldn't be a basketball coach.
Interesting.
And my life would have been much different. I didn't play basketball. I played soccer. I was playing tennis. I really wanted to be a pilot.
Wow.
Back then I was really, really interested in that. But who knows, at 10, I mean, things change. But I'm pretty confident, and I can say it with absolute confidence that I wouldn't have been in this field, because that was not what was important there. Do I think I would have come over for school? I think my parents I would have come over and gone to college here and done those things. But, by that time, 18, I wouldn't have. 19, you come over here for school, I wouldn't have ever even touched the ball.
Yeah.
So life would have been a lot different, even the family that I have today and all that, and everything would have been different. That instant changed the whole trajectory of my whole existence.
I've read articles on you when you were depicting what it was like moving to Utah and first seeing a basketball and thinking it was maybe a soccer ball, and you tried to kick it and you felt at that point embarrassed. You thought that you basically were, ashamed of, like, I guess I don't know what this is. How did it then become certain within you that this game of basketball was not soccer, and it was something in which you wanted to dedicate the rest of your life to?
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was a basketball. I probably over exaggerated that, but
Yeah.
I was better off kicking the ball than I was dribbling. I could
There
tell you
you
that,
go. Yeah.
right? But the game has meant everything. And like I said to you, when you come over here and you don't have really anything in common with someone from Murray, Utah,
Yeah.
especially a white kid from Murray, Utah, African-American guy from West Africa. The thing I realized quickly was that little orange ball can really, really, really connect you.
Yes.
And it gave us something in common. And that ball has led to some great friendships. I mean, to this day, that the kids on that playground, I'm still very close with.
Wow.
But that ball, though, has also given me everything I have in life. And it's led to some other relationships that has put me in the position that I am today. There's nothing that I have in my life that is not because of the game.
Wow.
And that's incredible what some little orange ball, when used correctly, can do for you.
Stan Johnson joins us, LMU's head basketball coach. I'm Bryan Fenley. I love the quote that you always go back to. You talk about coming from the mud. I don't have a tree, and I don't want to botch this phrase, but you always say every inch I've gotten, I've had to fight for. You land at LMU, and you do it during a pandemic. What was the toughest question you were asked during the interview process of taking that job?
Yeah. Every interview, and I've been fortunate to have interviewed for some other jobs, and all of them are all so different. But I'll never forget, I was asked, who in your life has had the greatest impact on you?
Hmm.
That is not a friend, that is not a family member, and that did not work in an athletic department. Think about that. Like
Wow.
when you're asked that right off, not a friend, not a family member, and not in the athletic department. And it did come to me quickly. There was someone in the custodial service at Marquette who would come in every day, and you're talking to me about my attitude and my demeanor, but I watched this guy come in every day, and literally you couldn't tell if he was the janitor or if he was the president.
Wow.
The way he conducted himself, the way he went about his job, his attitude. He would always show me pictures of his weekend and what he was looking forward to and what he's investing in. And, again, that guy, for me, what it really kind of stamped home for me, and I always say this and use it, is make the big time where you are. Whether that's a job, whether that's a position, whether that's some place, the big time, being big time is not associated with a title or a school or whatever. It's who you are.
Yeah.
And that guy's big time because he sees himself that way. He approaches life that way. He's not, putting a label on himself, but talk about a question. You're not, you don't prepare for that.
Yeah.
For that kind of question.
Absolutely.
So that would probably be one of the hardest ones.
That's really pretty cool, I'd have to say. How about this? When you got the job at LMU, what was the first thing your 4-year-old told you when your 4-year-old found out you guys are moving to Los Angeles?
So true story. I get the call, and
Okay.
so Craig calls me, and I'm sitting in the front room. My kids are in the living room. I sit in the front room, and I see Craig Penton's calling, and I'm like, all right, you're either getting this or you're not. But that's probably when he's calling, and I've been on that side of it before, and you see the call come in, your heart's pumping, and so I get off my couch and I walk past the kitchen, and right when I get past the kitchen, he had then just said, "Hey, man, we're down this road," and I'm thinking, here we go. And he says, "We want you to be our coach." Wow. Right? And I had just passed my kids, and I go, wow. You're emotional, you let out a scream.
Yeah.
So my 3 kids look at me. They're like, he got the job. He got the job. He got the job. So I'm in the kitchen now, and all of a sudden they all 3 take off and they go upstairs. So I'm on the call with Craig, and so I go upstairs, and now it's my kids and my wife. They're up there and they're talking, and I get up there and they're crying. I'm like, well, I wasn't expecting that. Well, they're crying because now they have to move, and they're friends, and so they're mad, initially. But it's funny. Next day later, you fast forward, they're looking at beaches in California, and they were over that. So it was tears from the 4-year-old.
Wow. Tears.
Now the 4-year-old didn't think he'd be allowed to bring his toys at that
Really?
point. So
now, how did you convey to him or her that you could?
So his name's Bryan. So he ended up bringing up. So am I going to be able to bring? I can't remember what toys there were. It's like, yeah, dude, we're gonna bring them. Okay, we're good.
You can fit those on the plane and ship those to Los Angeles. And here you are still hoping to meet your whole team. what you haven't done yet, how innovative have you had to be to trying to develop that chemistry and that camaraderie when you're not able to be in person with all of your staff members and all your players at this point?
Yeah, I'm lucky. We've finally, it's probably been a couple of weeks now. Our staff has been able to see each other in person. But you're right, to that point. I mean, I had to hire a staff, guys I didn't even know, over Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've had to recruit guys over Zoom, no visit, and then I've had to keep a team pretty much over Zoom and phone calls. Um, but I don't know how innovative it is. It's just more intentional. We've had to have the right intention. And, right now we meet every Thursday, and we've done that since I took the job as a program. And those meetings are pretty systematic. And early on, it's been about the kind of culture we want to build. And whether it's me giving them, the last dance, each guy getting one episode and having to present on that episode, what they took from that, how can we apply that moving forward, getting to know them, the things they're interested in. We've broken down their whole game and given them the areas of improvements that they need. We've had guys like Doug Collins and Marcus Howard come in and speak. So it's been very intentional. But also outside of that, though, I have what I call a contact sheet that we not only do for recruiting but with our players, where every morning when we meet as a staff at 9:30, it's the first thing we talk about. Okay, let's go through who have we talked to, and it's just got all their names and the dates. Hey, Monday I spoke to whoever, I text whoever, I FaceTimed whoever. So we know that every day, there's not a guy on our team that's not receiving something from us. Because it's funny, sometimes you can look at that sheet and go, oh man, we're at Friday and we haven't touched someone. Mm-hmm. So we've tried to be really intentional that way about growing our culture and through all this. And I've told these guys, and I've kind of stolen it from Doc Rivers, we have to find a way to win the wait. And while we're waiting and everybody's waiting, how can we close the gap?
Yeah.
Whether that's the connection piece, a culture piece, all those things. So that's how we've really tried to go about it.
So Stan, piggybacking off what you were saying, you've had a lot of coaches, a lot of players who you have worked with that have been able to have a role on the team that you are now coaching as far as mentoring and giving great advice. How many hours a day are you on your phone or on Zoom or on your computer right now trying to take over in the virtual sphere?
A lot. I mean, most of my days I'm either on a Zoom from 9 o'clock, sometimes 8:30 till, it could be 7 at night, or depending if there's some Zoom set up later than that. But usually that's around the average. And that's recruiting, that's fostering relationships with donors, that's building relationships on campus, you name it. That's connecting with our community. Right now with the time that I've been given because of this weight, mm-hmm. I really want to take advantage of it. And I'm putting a lot of pressure on the people around me, good pressure, and saying, you know what, we have this time. Let's really use this time to connect, because we may not get it back. And if this was normal, I wouldn't be able to do all that.
Yeah.
What makes it hard is you don't have that human connection, but I'm really trying to use it to our advantage. Because, what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
And for us, we have so much work to do in trying to find our space, as in this market, mm-hmm. And fighting for that. And that's the thing I tell myself every day, man. Every day you wake up, you got to fight for your culture. You got to fight for your program. And that's what it requires right now.
I think, though, your charisma is magnetic towards recruiting and players and convincing them to play for you. You've shown that over all the years that you are a very accomplished recruiter. And yes, it is a challenging task in Los Angeles with all of the different colleges around. But how do you feel like your personality can really sway a select player to come to LMU because of the street cred you have, because of the optimism and your resume?
Yeah, I mean, I hope what eventually they'll come for is, the relationships that we foster in recruiting and how they believe we can help them get better, as a player, as a person, as a student. you know, I hope that's what comes through, and what we do. You have, guys that are so talented across the country, people we compete against for recruiting that are really, really good. It's hard. I hope, though, for us, um, the things that we say, we live up to. Because when you can do that, all of a sudden now, um, the program begins to recruit itself, and the
Yeah.
players in your program start to sell that. And that's where I hope we get to. But that's got to be our niche. I mean, right now, if we call a kid, it's not like they're just going to jump on. We don't have the same cachet as a USC and a UCLA in that regard. And by the way, those places have great coaches. They're great institutions. They have so much going for them. But how can we find a different way at the human level to connect deeper and give a kid a reason to go, you know what? Something feels different here. And that's what we're trying to get. And I hope you're right. I hope my personality will lead to that. So far, it hasn't been easy. But it's, I like where we're going. I like where we're headed.
You're doing the recruiting. How about when you were recruited to coach in Bemidji, Minnesota? So reversing roles here. You take that job, your first coaching gig out of college. What's the living situation like for you? What are you thrust upon when you take that position?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. A guy by the name of Jeff Gio was the head coach there, and Coach Gio has played a major role in my life, and especially in my basketball life. Uh, in terms of giving me my start. And again, we all need a start. And had he not done that, once again, who knows where I would be. We're all that. I'm sure you can say the same thing in your career.
Yeah.
Somebody had to give you something, give you a
Sure.
start.
Absolutely.
Gave me a start. And I remember, obviously I was a college graduate, and, I grew up in a house where academics was important. And it's funny, my dad was, I talked to him about it every other day. And the other day he was saying, man, you're always busting me up on all your interviews. Like, because, my dad was like, are you serious? You're going to do what? You're an intelligent guy. You have a college degree. You're going to make 10 grand a year, 12 grand a year, sleep in a guy's basement to call yourself a coach. Like, where do you see that going? And I always kid him now, because as my career has gone, he's the guy. I don't go on message boards and all. I mean, my dad can give you all the inside scoop. He's telling me what's going on. That's how big of a fan he's become.
Yeah.
And that's become really cool. But, the job itself, like I said, you're making 10 grand, you're sleeping in a guy's basement, you're cleaning the gym, you're ordering meals, you're planning practice, you're recruiting. Oh, by the way, you're doing that, and you're not bringing guys to campus because you don't have money to do that. You have 4.5 scholarships. You're in a league with 10. You're fostering relationships. You're putting out fires. You're doing everything. Practice planning, game planning. And sometimes in those moments, there's a tendency to go, man, look at this other guy. He's only a couple years ahead of me, and look where he's at already. And real quick, I snapped out of that and said, number one, you got to run your race. 2, comparison is the thief of all joy. And 3,
So
like you
true.
said, make the big time where you are. And I can honestly tell you, putting on that Bemidji State polo felt just as good as putting on the Marquette polo or the Northridge polo or the Utah polo, because I was so appreciative of that job. And you couldn't tell me that wasn't like being at Duke. And that's how I carried myself. And that's how we approached it. Because again, I was grateful for that. And, you know, I say all the time, the things that in life that we sometimes take for granted are things that we once hoped for. It's
A
things we
great
once
point. We
dreamed
never
of.
realized that, but it's
You
so
don't,
true.
you don't realize that. And if you can realize that in the moment, uh, you know, you just have a different approach. And then all of a sudden people want to be around there. And, you know, we were able to win the league there and do some things that had never been done with 4.5 scholarships. But that was because of the belief we had, not just myself, but the head coach. I mean, we felt like Bemidji State, man, this is the best place to be. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't we be here? And that was our approach, because you know what? That's all we had. And that experience, though, I would not trade for anything, because that's helped me on this job. That's helped me at Marquette. You know, during the pandemic, like, what do we do? What do we recruit? Guess what? I'm back to square one. At Bemidji, you watch the film, and you made a bunch of calls to get feedback on a kid, and you called on the phone and you recruited them, and you had to get a kid done without taking a visit. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
You know, so that experience has helped me. And now, a few years from now, I'll tell you how good it was, depending on how these guys turn out. But
Totally.
it's helped, and I appreciate that.
One guy who is going to help your team in a big way this upcoming year, Eli Scott. And you've seen this guy wreak havoc in the league. When you look at his skill set and what he can do to take this team and captain it to big things, what do you like most about what he has?
The thing I love most about Eli automatically is who he is as a human being. I told him this 2 nights ago. I love his heart. Like he is a real person. He's sincere. He's got a pure heart. I love that about Eli Scott. You know, my challenge to him, as good as you've been, you got a heck of a lot more to give. And we can't be okay with you being second team WCC.
Yeah.
And that's a good accomplishment. There's no knock on that. But your talent and what you have, you're capable of more. And it's how you eat, it's how you prepare, it's how you sleep, it's how you go at it. And Eli's had a great approach to that. And he's working on that, and he wants that. And I've told him my job is to help take you to a place you can't take yourself. Wow. And it would be very easy for me to come in here and go, you know what, man, you're all league guy, you're a good player, and you know, I just want to keep you, and I'm not going to say anything to upset, but then I'd be doing you a disservice. And he is a talent. He's a heck of a kid. And we have not seen the best version of Eli Scott. Wow. And we're going to see that this year. We're going to see his best version. And that's my challenge to him. And I told him, to whom much is given, much is expected. And for us to be good and to get this thing where we want it, you have to be the leader and the change agent for that. And it starts with you and how you look and how you go about things and what your process is every day. So he's a talent. Eli can play anywhere in the country. And I'm excited to see him at his ultimate peak.
Circling back to your dad, I think your dad would say he's excited to see you here at your peak and what you're doing at LMU. You brought up the point that when you left Liberia, you did not head to the States with your dad. How long was it until you were able to reunite with him? And what was the fear like knowing the unknown, because you did not know if you'd see him again or when you would see him?
Yeah, we don't even have enough time in this interview to go over all that, right? Because when we came over, we actually were in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a few months. We have relatives there. We were living with them. And there was a point where someone had called my mom and said, hey, we saw there was a picture in the paper back home in Liberia talking about some of the government officials that were killed. And your husband was one of them. So think about that for a stretch there. My mom and us, we thought our dad, he had died. and he actually ended up escaping with his parents and got to a different country. And on my mom's birthday, he phoned her to tell her that he had gotten out of the country. Like, think about that. So again, when you're not 10 years old, there's so much going, it's hard to process that. But again, being 40 and even thinking about that, that's just, you can't even make it up. It sounds like a made up story, you know?
Do you recall that conversation when your mom picked up the phone and she heard your dad's voice?
I don't remember the gist of it, but I remember the excitement.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the relief. I remember the joy that we all felt. The one thing when we had heard the news, people kept saying, "Don't believe it." So it wasn't like we just thought he was, but there was a chance he may not be alive.
Mm-hmm.
But for that to be validated that he was alive and he had escaped, I mean, that was elation. I mean, what better feeling can you have,
Yeah. And it must be a great feeling to get that head coaching gig. You speak about elation, and on a much separate note, having this job, being at your first head coaching position must bring about so much joy, knowing your humble beginnings. You talked about it and where it's led you now. I am overjoyed for you, Stan, that you got this opportunity. And when basketball resumes, I can't wait to check out some of your games. And I'm anxious for you to get a chance to meet all your guys in person, have everybody together, get that mission and that plan that you want to instill with this program. And I love the collectiveness that you carry yourself with, because you know that it takes a team to run this team. And while you are the head coach, and I've read and I've listened to a lot of podcasts with you on it, where it takes the donors, it takes the administrators, and it's building relationships with everybody around you to help this thing get off the ground and have success. And I have no doubt in my mind you will, with that mindset. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on and giving me a bit of your time, because I know how busy you are. But Stan, just really an honor to meet you.
Well, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you, Bryan, having me, and I appreciate how you close. And even this, you doing this and us having this interview, it takes everybody. And I want to make the people of LMU proud. I want to make LA proud. I want to restore a great story here, but I am humble enough to know there's no way I can do that by myself. So you doing this, allowing us to spread our message and to continue to connect with our fan base and grow this means a lot to me. And you're always welcome. And I can't wait to meet you in person.
Likewise.